أهلا بيكم في تحليلنا المعمق النهاردة. معانا أجزاء من قصة بنتابع فيها طفولة شخصية معينة. هنركز النهاردة على بداياته التعليمية اللي هي كانت متعثرة شوية، وعلاقاته بالناس اللي حواليه، وإزاي فجأة بيحصل تغيير كبير في حياته. البداية مع بيب بطل حكايتنا، وهو بيفتكر نظرته للعالم وهو طفل ومحاولاته الأولى عشان يفهم الدنيا.
تمام، ودي فرصة كويسة قوي نشوف ازاي البدايات البسيطة دي والعلاقات اللي مش متوقعة أحيانا بتشكلنا، وممكن كمان نلمح إشارات لحاجات هتحصل بعدين. بندخل عالم يبان محدود، بس هو بصراحة مليان تفاصيل إنسانية عميقة.
أيوة، مثلا بيب كان بيفهم الكلام بحرفية غريبة قوي، زي مثلا زوجة اللي فوق اللي على قبر مامته، هو فهم إنها في مكانة عالية بجد، أو إنه لازم يمشي في طريق واحد بس عشان ده اللي عارفه.
بالظبط.
ده غير بقى الشغلانات البسيطة اللي كان بيعملها، زي إنه يخوف العصافير، والفلوس بتاعته اللي بيحطوها في حصالة لسداد الدين القومية. حاجة كده عجيبة
أيوة، ده بيوضح لنا قد إيه تفكير الطفل ممكن يكون ساذج، بس كمان بيورينا تحدي كبير اللي هو جودة التعليم اللي كانت متاحة وقتها. بيب عايز يتعلم، ده واضح، لكن في المقابل إيه المتاح؟ مدرسة الست العجوز اللي جنبهم اللي بتنام طول الحصة.
المدرسة المسائية دي حكايتها حكاية بصراحة.
تمام.
الست العجوزة نايمة فعلا، والعيال بيتفرجوا عليها وهي نايمة، وفي نفس الوقت قريبها مستر ويبسل بيزعق فوق وهو بيقرأ بصوت عالي. فوضى
فوضى فعلا.
والعجيب بقى إن وسط كل ده اللي بجد بتحاول تساعد بيب يتعلم هي طفلة تانية يتيمة زيه اسمها بيدي.
بالظبط، ودور بيدي هنا مهم قوي. هي نموذج مختلف عن الكبار اللي حواليه، وبتبين قد ايه الدعم البشري حتى لو بسيط بيفرق. وفي نفس الوقت بنشوف قد ايه الادوات كانت بدائيه، اللوح اللي بيكتب عليه بصعوبه ده مثلا.
صحيح.
ده يخلينا نفكر في قيمه العلاقات دي، خصوصا لما الظروف تكون صعبه.
وفي مشهد بقى مؤثر قوي لما بيب بيحاول يكتب رساله لجو. جو ده الحداد الطيب، جوز اخته اللي هو زي ابوه. بيب فرحان بنفسه قوي وفاكر انه عمل انجاز، لكن بنكتشف ان جو نفسه يدوب بيعرف يستهجى اسمه JO. المشهد ده بسيط بس فيه عمق كبير قوي
فعلا. وهنا بنشوف قد ايه العلاقة بينهم قوية وعميقة. عدم تعليم جو ده مش مجرد انه معرفش يروح مدرسة وخلاص، لا، ده مرتبط بماضيه الصعب وقصته. لو بصينا للصورة الأكبر بنشوف ازاي الظروف ممكن تحبس الواحد. جو نفسه رغم توبته محاصر في دايرة الحرمان دي، وده يطرح سؤال بقى، هل بيب هيقدر يخرج من الدايرة دي؟
وجو نفسه بيحكي لبيب، بيفتح له قلبه عن طفولته. أبوه كان سكير وعنيف معاه ومع مامته، وإزاي هربوا كذا مرة واضطر يشتغل وهو صغير بدل ما يروح المدرسة عشان يصرف على أمه. وبيقول إن اللي شافه مع أمه ده خلاه يبقى حريص قوي في معاملة الستات، وده سبب إنه مستحمل تسلط أخت بيب عليه شوية.
القصة دي بتكشف قد إيه جو ده شخص نبيل بجد، ومبادئه قوية رغم كل اللي مر بيه ورغم حرمانه من التعليم. فكرة إنه مستحمل مراته دي يمكن مش ضعف قد ما هو اختيار واعي، نابع من خوفه إنه يكرر الظلم اللي شافته والدته. بس هنا في نقطة برضو، هل الطيبة الزايدة دي فضيلة دايما، ولا ممكن تكون شكل من أشكال الهروب من المواجهة بسبب صدمات قديمة؟ دي نقطة محتاجة تفكير.
تمام. وبعدين فجأة كده من غير أي مقدمات بتيجي أخت بيب ومعاها قريبهم مستر بامبلتشوك بخبر غريب قوي. الأنسة هافيشام، الست الغنية المنعزلة اللي محدش يعرف عنها حاجة تقريبا، عايزة بيب يروح لها البيت عشان يلعب.
لحظة التحول الكبيرة.
بالظبط. الخبر ده عمل قلق وحماس عند الكبار، لكن بيب نفسه تايه ومش فاهم أي حاجة، وأخته بقى بتغسله وبتلبسه بعنف وقلق استعدادا للزيارة دي.
اللحظة دي فعلا هي نقطة تحول مفاجئة ومحورية. الغموض كله اللي حوالين الأنسة هافيشام دي وسبب طلبها الغريب ده بيفتح الباب على مستقبل مختلف تماما لبيب. المثير للاهتمام هنا هو الفرق الكبير بين حماس الكبار، أملهم في فرصة وبين حيرة بيب نفسه وهو رايح للمجهول ده.
يبقى لو حبينا نلخص أهم النقط اللي شفناها النهاردة، كانت البدايات التعليمية الصعبة قوي لبيب، وشفنا علاقته العميقة بجو اللي فيها جوانب كتير من المعاناة والنبل الإنساني.
مظبوط.
وأخيراً التحول الكبير والمفاجئ ده اللي بتمثله دعوة الأنسة هافيشام.
تمام، ونقدر نختم بسؤال كده نفكر فيه، يا ترى إزاي كل التجارب الأولية دي، الفهم البسيط للأمور، التعليم الضعيف، علاقة جو بماضيه، العنف اللي شافه جو، إزاي كل ده هيشكل رحلة بيب، خصوصا وهو داخل دلوقتي على عالم الآنسة هافشام الغريب والمليان أسرار ده. إيه اللي هيحصل لشخصيته وتفكيره بعد كده؟ دي نقطة مهمة تستدعي التأمل بعد تحليلنا للمصادر دي.
Okay, so let's unpack this. You've sent over some really interesting excerpts focusing on Pip's childhood. What struck me straight away was this big contrast
Right.
between his, almost funny misunderstandings of basic things like tombstone writing or the catechism, and then this huge thing that's about to happen.
The invitation from Miss Havisham. Yeah.
Exactly. So our kind of mission with this deep dive is to really get a feel for the world Pip's living in, understand his limitations, I suppose, and why this invitation is such a massive deal.
Absolutely. And these excerpts give us a great window into that early life, the key people around him, Joe, Mrs. Joe.
Right. Mr. Wopsle, Biddy, and of course the shadow of Miss Havisham looming even before she appears.
Well, what's fascinating, I think, right from the start is how those little misunderstandings Pip has. They aren't just cute.
No, they're quite revealing.
They really show how narrow his world is, how little exposure he's had, and that maybe makes him, more vulnerable to what's coming.
That makes sense. Like when he reads Wife of the Above and thinks it's, praising his dad up in heaven.
Or that anyone below must be bad. It's so black and white.
Yeah, there's no gray area because he hasn't seen enough of the world to know it exists. And the catechism thing, thinking he literally has to walk the exact same path every day.
It just highlights the lack of deeper explanation in his upbringing, doesn't it? He's taking everything at absolute face value.
Which could be tricky later on when things get more complicated.
Definitely. And then you look at his actual schooling, or lack thereof.
Right. Being the odd boy at the forge, running errands, and his tiny earnings going into that jar.
Supposedly for the national debt.
I know. It paints such a picture of just, pure utility. Even a kid's pennies are vital.
It really underscores the economic reality for families like his. Survival comes first, which obviously limits things like proper education.
And then there's the actual school, Mr. Wopsle's great aunt's evening school.
Oh, that's quite something.
Where the teacher mostly sleeps and charges 2 pence a week for the privilege. But still, that's Pip's main exposure to learning.
And what kind of learning is it? It seems more about performance than real understanding.
Yeah, like Mr. Wopsle's dramatic readings, Mark Antony, or that ode.
Collins's ode on the passions. Yeah. Revenge throwing his blood-stained sword in thunder down.
You can just imagine Pip wide-eyed hearing these big dramatic words.
But probably not grasping the context or the literature at all. It's more like a show.
A bit of theater instead of education. And the quarterly examination's just another stage for Mr. Wopsle.
It does make you wonder what society back then actually valued in education for, kids in Pip's position. Was it real learning or just keeping them busy?
Good question. And the shop being run in the same room, the great aunt having no clue about her stock.
Relying completely on Biddy in that famous greasy memorandum book.
It all adds up to this chaotic sort of makeshift environment he's growing up in.
And Biddy really stands out in all this, doesn't she?
She does. Another orphan, similar background.
Yeah, and the description, the unbrushed hair, the unwashed hands, but only on weekdays. It speaks volumes about their daily grind.
It's practical, maybe a bit harsh, but she seems quite resilient.
Well, yeah, because despite all that, she's the one who actually helps Pip.
True. She helps him with his letters, his numbers. It's a genuine bit of kindness and support in this really limited world.
You see this inherent strength and maybe empathy in her. Even with her own difficulties, she helps him out.
That probably means more than the sleeping great aunt or Mr. Wopsle's dramatics.
I'd say so. Which leads us nicely to Pip writing that letter to Joe.
Ah, yes. A year after the marshes incident, it's winter, he's scratching the alphabet on the hearth.
And he puts together this amazing letter. M.I. Dear Joe, I hope you U-R-K-R, white well.
The spelling is incredible, but the effort, the pride he must have felt is actually quite moving.
And what's really touching is the message behind it, isn't it? His hope to teach Joe one day.
And then we sure'll be so glad. It shows how much he cares about Joe, wants to share this new skill.
It really cements their bond, despite the educational gap.
And Joe's reaction is just priceless, pure wonder.
Utter amazement at Pip's scholarship.
His belief that J.O. must absolutely spell Joe is so endearing.
But also, a very clear sign of his own struggles with reading.
It kind of sets up what Joe tells Pip later about his own lack of schooling.
Exactly. When Pip pushes him to read more, and Joe just sees 3 J's and 3 O's and 3 J.O. Joes.
It's funny, but also sad. highlighting what he missed out on, and admitting he doesn't really spell Gargery at all.
But notice how he says it's not like he's ashamed. It's just a fact of his life, the way things were for many people then.
Very true. And then we get Joe's own story. It's quite brutal, actually.
It really is. The alcoholic, abusive father.
Dragging him away from the few times he actually got to go to school, beating him.
Yeah.
It's a tough background.
It shows that cycle, poverty, lack of opportunity. His father's problems directly stopped Joe from getting an education.
Yeah, it really puts Joe's kindness and patience with Pip into perspective.
And yet, despite everything his father did, Joe still insists he was good in his heart.
That says so much about Joe, doesn't it? His capacity for forgiveness. Or maybe it's how he copes.
Could be both. A sort of deep loyalty, maybe, or a way to, make peace with a painful past.
It's complex.
Then his working life taking over the forge, supporting his father until he dies from that purple leptic fit.
And the tombstone he wanted to get for him.
What, Samir, are the failings on his part? Remember, reader, he were that good in his art.
But he couldn't afford it. The poetry cost too much, and his mother needed the money.
Again, that harsh reality. Practical needs just trump everything else, even grieving properly.
It hammers home their situation.
And then, after his mother dies, he's lonely, and he marries Pip's sister,
Mrs. Joe.
His insistence that she's a fine figure of a woman, even though Pip clearly doesn't see it that way.
Well, maybe it was about companionship and feeling responsible for Pip. He says he remembered Pip's sister saying about baby Pip.
Bring the poor little child. There's room for him at the forge. Right. So maybe it was a mix of things. Loneliness, duty, maybe some genuine feeling, given his limited options.
Which brings us finally to the big news. The invitation.
Yes. Mrs. Joe bursting in from market with Uncle Pumblechook.
You can just feel the energy shift. Her excitement is almost manic.
And expecting Pip to be incredibly grateful for this huge opportunity.
Her worry about him getting pomp-eyed is interesting, too.
It shows she's aware of class differences, right? Worried he might get too big for his boots, look down on them.
And the request itself is so strange when you think about it. Miss Havisham wants Pip to go and play there.
It sounds so innocent, childlike almost. But everyone reacts like it's monumental.
Joe's just baffled. How does this rich, reclusive lady even know Pip exists?
It's a perfectly reasonable question.
Yeah.
And that ambiguity is key, isn't it? It builds suspense. We don't know her motives.
And Mrs. Joe's explanation is, well, a bit convoluted. Pumblechook might be a tenant. He might have mentioned Pip. It feels like she's clutching at straws, trying to make it make sense based on her own ambitions for him.
It really shows her desire for Pip to move up in the world. And Pumblechook jumps right on board, offering to take Pip himself.
They see it as Pip's big break. Joe just seems puzzled, maybe a bit wary.
Then the preparations. Poor Pip being scrubbed raw.
That detail about the wedding ring leaving ridges on his skin, it's so vivid.
And the stiff, uncomfortable new clothes. It's almost like they're dressing him up for a role he doesn't understand.
A symbol, maybe, of being forced into this unfamiliar world.
Could be. And then Uncle Pumblechook's grand send-off.
Oh, that speech. Boy, be forever grateful to all friends, but especially unto them which brought you up by hand.
The irony is just dripping off it, considering how Mrs. Joe often treated him by hand.
It's pure performance from Pumblechook, making himself look good.
Exactly. And Pip leaves, still completely clueless about what playing at Miss Havisham's actually means. All those questions hanging in the air.
It's such a pivotal moment. He's stepping out of one world, the only one he knows.
And into something totally unknown, mysterious, and, potentially life-changing. The contrast is huge.
So just to sort of wrap up the main threads here. Pip's early world, it's tough, it's limited, but it also has these pockets of real kindness, mainly from Joe and Biddy.
Right. And his naive view of things makes the arrival of this grand, mysterious invitation even more dramatic.
We're left hanging, really.
Yeah.
Why does Miss Havisham want him there? What does she expect? That's the big hook.
Definitely. Seeing his background gives us such crucial context for whatever happens next. It shows us what he's coming from, the constraints he's lived under.
And it sets up this potential for massive change, but also maybe disillusionment.
Exactly. The ambiguity around Miss Havisham is really powerful. It draws you in, makes you wonder.
It does make you think, doesn't it, about those moments in life, those unexpected doors opening.
Yeah, how seemingly random things can completely shift your path.
And like Pip, heading off into the unknown, what assumptions do we carry with us? How do those shape what happens next? It's a fascinating setup.